Go live on the streets. Maybe the cold will teach you the value of real work. My laptop bag hit the snowbank with a dull thud. My father, Mark, stood in the doorway, his face flushed and blotchy against the white soil of a Flagstaff blizzard. Behind him, my mother, Elaine, didn't even look up from her phone. She was too busy scrolling through Zillow, probably admiring the fake listings my sister Brooke claimed she'd sold. I didn't beg, I didn't cry. I just brushed the snow off the leather. Then I looked at him and smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a lender realizing a borrower has just defaulted. I turned and walked straight into the whiteout. Most people in a blizzard look for shelter. I looked for a signal. I drove my beat-up sedan past the Days Inn, past the public library, straight to the private hangar at Flagstaff Pulliam Airport. I typed in the keypad code, a sequence my parents thought was for a gym locker, and the heavy steel door slid open. Inside sat my mobile office, a Gulfstream G650. I climbed the steps, shook the snow off my coat, and sat in the leather captain's chair. The cabin was silent, smelling of conditioned air and expensive leather. I opened the laptop my father had just thrown into a snowbank. The screen flickered to life. I checked the terminal running in the background. While Mark was screaming at me about the value of real work, my algorithmic trading bot had executed 46 trades. Net profit for the last hour, $41,000. I didn't feel happy. Happiness is an emotion. This was just data. For 32 years, I had been the ghost in their house, the failure, the one who played on computers while my sister Brooke was the golden child real estate prodigy. They looked at me, but they didn't see me. Psychologists call it the cognitive dissonance of the mediocre. My parents had built their entire identity on a simple lie. Brooke was the winner and I was the loser. That belief was the load-bearing wall of their reality. If they admitted that I was successful, that the computer games were actually high-frequency financial systems, their world would collapse. It would mean they were wrong. It would mean their massive financial and emotional investment in Brooke was a sunk cost. To protect their egos, their brains rejected the evidence. They didn't ignore my success because it was invisible. They ignored it because acknowledging it would destroy them. They needed me to be small so they could feel big. So I let them. I played the role they assigned me, the broke, drifting daughter living in the basement. But every month for 5 years, I had set up a shell company, Redstone Consulting LLC. That company paid a consulting fee of $4,600 into my father's business account. They thought it was a lucky retainer from an old contractor friend. It was me. I was the only reason they could pay the mortgage on the house they had just thrown me out of. I was the only reason Brooke could lease her luxury SUV. They were living on a subscription to my guilt, and they didn't even know it. I looked at the bank transfer scheduled for the next morning. Asset freeze. I typed the command and hit enter. The status bar turned red. Transfer canceled. I leaned back in the chair. The silence in the hangar was heavy, absolute. It felt like the pressure drop before a storm. They wanted me to learn the value of money. Fine. Lesson 1 starts now. 2 weeks later, I was watching the sunrise over downtown Sedona from the balcony of a penthouse suite. I wasn't using my name. The reservation was under a holding company. To the staff, I was just a quiet consultant who tipped well and didn't want housekeeping. To the world, I was a ghost. But to my family, I was suddenly a criminal. My phone, which I'd left on silent for 14 days, vibrated across the marble counter. It wasn't a call, it was a flood. I scrolled through the messages. It read like a case study in panic. It started 3 days after I left. That was the day the Redstone transfer usually hit my father's account. Elaine texted first. "Did you mess with the Wi-Fi before you left? The business accounts are acting strange. Your father is trying to pay vendors, and the system says insufficient funds. What did you do to the server?" I took a sip of espresso. The server was fine. The subsidy was gone. By day 7, the tone shifted from confusion to accusation. Mark wrote, "We know you hacked the accounts. It's the only explanation. Put the money back or I'm calling the police. You think this is a game? Brooke is crying because her commission check is late and we can't help her because someone destroyed our liquidity." I actually laughed at that one, a short, dry sound. They truly believed I was hacking them. Their minds couldn't process the alternative. In their story, Mark was a self-made businessman and I was a tech-illiterate disappointment. It was easier for them to believe I had suddenly become a cybercriminal than to accept that they'd been living on my charity for half a decade. And the lie about Brooke? I checked the regional MLS database. She hadn't closed a deal in 6 months. There was no commission check coming. She was drowning in lease payments for a lifestyle she couldn't afford and credit card debt from staging success online. She wasn't crying because of banking glitch. She was crying because the bank of mom and dad had just collapsed and she didn't know why. I didn't respond. I didn't defend myself. I watched the desperation mutate into performance. Elaine, realizing private threats weren't working, took it public. I opened Facebook. There it was. A photo from a year ago. Elaine and Brooke clinking champagne glasses, glowing under filters. The caption read, "It's heartbreaking when you raise a child, give them everything, and they turn around and betray you. Snakes always reveal themselves. Praying my wayward daughter finds God and a conscience." Dozens of likes, dozens of comments. Sympathy, validation. She was publicly shaming me for biting the hand that feeds me while privately panicking because that hand had stopped feeding them. The hypocrisy wasn't surprising, it was structural. Most people would have rushed to comment, to post screenshots, to burn the whole illusion down in real time. I didn't. Anger is a volatile commodity. If you spend it in small bursts, it loses value. You have to save it, compound it, invest it where it delivers the highest return. A comment war is a low-yield investment. I had something much bigger in mind. I opened my laptop and composed an email to the only person in my family who wasn't delusional, my cousin Ethan. He was a forensic accountant based in Portland, the boring cousin everyone mocked because he drove a Subaru instead of a Porsche. Subject line, audit request. Ethan, I need you to look into the books, not just the business, everything. I'm buying the debt, but I need to know exactly what I'm purchasing. Invoice me your standard rate plus 50% for speed. I hit send. They wanted me to accuse me of hacking. Fine, I wouldn't hack them, I would audit them. Forensic accounting is just an autopsy for money. You cut open the ledger and see what actually killed the patient. Ethan sat across from me later that afternoon in the living area of the suite. He looked out of place in the opulence, clutching his battered briefcase like a shield. He didn't know about my money until 10 minutes earlier. I had slid a tablet across the table showing my liquid assets. He choked on his water. "This is institutional money," he whispered, scrolling. "You're a whale." "I'm a ghost," I corrected, "and I need you to haunt my parents." I handed him access keys to the Redstone Consulting shell company I'd used to funnel money to them. I also handed him authorization to dig into public records and credit reports tied to my father's LLC. I want to know why I was sending them over $50,000 a year, tax-free. Dad's pension brings in another $40,000, and Brooke claims she's closing million-dollar deals, yet the moment I froze the transfer, they imploded in 3 days. They should have reserves. Ethan adjusted his glasses. The shock faded, replaced with focus. "Give me 48 hours. You have 24. While Ethan followed the digital paper trail, I followed the physical one. I opened a new file on my laptop. I didn't open it as the rejected daughter. I opened it as managing director of North Rim Holdings, the anonymous trust that had quietly purchased the non-performing note on my parents' mortgage 6 months earlier. The bank didn't care who bought it. They just wanted the risk off their books. My parents had received a letter saying their mortgage was sold to a new servicer. They likely threw it away without reading it. They had no idea the new servicer was the daughter living in their basement. I had bought the debt as insurance, a way to keep a roof over their heads if my father's gambling got bad again. Now it was leverage. I drafted the notice of default and intent to accelerate. The cursor blinked. For years, I had been afraid of my father's voice, the way it boomed, the way it made me feel small just by looking at the floor. But staring at the legal document, the fear evaporated. In the eyes of the law, he wasn't a patriarch. He was a distressed borrower, and I was a secured creditor. Relationships are messy. Contracts are absolute. I finalized the terms. They had missed the mortgage payment because I hadn't sent the money to cover it. According to the loan agreement, they were in default. I added a clause demanding full inspection of the collateral, which gave me legal access to the house. I printed the document. The printer hummed softly, a sound more comforting than any lullaby. Ethan looked up from his screen, his face pale. "You need to see this," he said. "Is Dad gambling again?" I asked. "It's worse," he said. "It's creative." He turned the laptop toward me. "You thought the Redstone payments were covering the mortgage. They weren't. Your father hasn't paid principal in 2 years. Interest only, just enough to keep the bank quiet." "Then where did my money go?" I asked, my voice dropping. Ethan pointed to a chain of transfers, a branding agency in Los Angeles, a reputation management firm, a leasing company for a luxury SUV. He swallowed. They were spending your money staging Brooke's career, buying fake awards, paying for bot farms to inflate her social media. They weren't broke. They were investing everything you gave them into a Ponzi scheme called Brooke's Success. I stared at the numbers. It was a factory of lies powered by my labor. Keep digging, I said. I want the kill shot. Ethan hesitated. There's one more thing. A withdrawal from an account I didn't recognize, a custodial account with your name on it. My blood went cold. My grandmother's college fund. I hadn't touched it. How much? $28,500, withdrawn 3 weeks ago. Signature looks shaky. And where did it go? He pulled up the wire. Beneficiary? The Hawthorne Family Trust. I frowned. Who are they? I didn't know either, he said, pulling another file. So I cross-referenced Brooke's last closed sale. The Hawthornes bought a downtown condo from her 6 months ago. 2 weeks after closing, they threatened to sue, not just for a refund. They were going to the real estate commission. Fraud, Ethan said quietly. She sold them a unit with known structural water damage. There was an inspection report from a prior buyer that she hid. She buried it to close the deal. The image sharpened all at once. Brooke hadn't failed, she had cheated. And when she got caught, she didn't face consequences. She ran to Mom, and Mom didn't have the cash because I had frozen Redstone. So Elaine forged my signature and drained my grandmother's fund to pay hush money. They stole my inheritance to protect Brooke's illusion. Ethan removed his glasses, rubbing his eyes. This is felony level. Identity theft, wire fraud, grand larceny. If you report this, your mother goes to federal prison. He waited for the explosion. It never came. I felt no rage. I felt clarity, like an equation finally resolving to zero. I looked at the number on the screen. $28,500. In corporate finance, we call that a termination fee, the cost of exiting a bad contract. For 32 years, I had paid an emotional tax to stay in this family. I had paid with violence, with shame, with money. This theft was the final invoice. They didn't steal from me. They handed me a receipt that said I never owed them anything ever again. Not a call, not a holiday, not a second of my attention. So you're not calling the police? Ethan asked quietly. No, I said. Police are for criminals. My parents aren't criminals. They're bad investments. I gathered the foreclosure notice, the audit report, and the wire fraud documentation into a leather binder and snapped it shut. Jail would let them play the victim. This would force them to live with the truth. I checked my watch. 5 p.m. I just invited them to dinner at a steakhouse downtown. I told them I had a proposal to fix their cash flow problem. Ethan looked uneasy. You're feeding them? No, I said, heading for the door. I'm serving them. The restaurant was the kind of place where the menus didn't list prices and the air smelled like aged wood and expensive beef. I arrived early, ordered sparkling water, and sat with my back to the wall, the binder resting on the table like a loaded weapon. They arrived late. Mark first, chest out, wearing his negotiation blazer. Elaine followed, scanning the room for witnesses. Brooke trailed behind them, wearing a cream cashmere coat with the return tag still tucked inside the sleeve. They slid into the booth like royalty. They thought I was there to surrender. Mark ordered wine without looking at me. Elaine ordered appetizers. Brooke checked her phone, waiting for money that wasn't coming. They spent freely. $400 in small plates alone. They were eating on credit, betting on a bailout that didn't exist. When the table was cleared, Mark leaned back and smiled. All right, he said. Let's hear your proposal. Make it quick. Brooke has showings tomorrow. I took a sip of water and set the glass down. My proposal, I said calmly, is a timeline. I slid the binder across the table. He opened it, expecting an apology. The first page was a notice of default and intent to accelerate. North Rim Holdings was calling the loan due immediately. He laughed nervously. My mortgage is with the bank. This is a scam. Turn the page, I said. He did. The forensic audit showed the wire transfer from my grandmother's custodial account. Highlighted. Elaine gasped. She recognized the number. And the next one? I said. He turned the page. My filed tax return, adjusted gross income, circled in red. $19,500,000. The table went silent. Brooke leaned in, eyes wide. You? This is fake. It's filed with the IRS, I said. unlike your expenses. I leaned forward. I didn't hack your accounts. I was your account. Every mortgage payment, every lease, every lucky consulting check, that was me. Charity, covering your inability to generate real wealth. Elaine trembled. And you, I continued, stole my inheritance to cover Brooke's fraud. That's a felony. I could end your life as you know it with one call. She cried. We're family. No, I said. Family doesn't steal. Parasites do. And I just fumigated the house. I stood. You have 30 days to vacate the property. If you aren't done, the sheriff will handle it. Brooke grabbed my arm. You can't do this. I have a reputation. I pulled away. You don't have a reputation. You have a tab. I dropped $100 bill on the table. That covers my water and the tip. Enjoy dinner. You're paying for this one. I walked into the cold night and didn't look back. The collapse was slow and quiet. Brooke filed for Chapter 7 weeks later. The SUV was repossessed. My parents downsized to a rental on the edge of town. Adequate. I didn't watch. I bought a ranch in the mountains. I installed fiber, built a server room, and faced my desk toward the horizon. My phone still lights up with blocked numbers. I don't answer. People ask why I didn't fix them. Because you can't fill a cup that refuses to be emptied. My absence did what my presence never could. The snow falls thick and clean here, erasing tracks, erasing noise. The algorithms run. The numbers stay green. I don't feel happy. I feel clean. If you're still listening, hear this. Stop arguing with people committed to misunderstanding you. Stop paying for approval that never arrives. Build quietly. Let them underestimate you. And if this story gave you clarity, like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it with someone who needs it, and comment your perspective or the lesson you're taking away.